Mr. E.H. Nebraska asked, how did you learn to follow the Father without letting yourself try to take control again? How do I balance having control over the micro in my life with the Father controlling the macro in my life? I have some really deep conceptual thoughts on this that I'm going to try my best to put into words. The first thing I would say, how did you learn to follow the Father without letting yourself try to take control again? There are certainly times, still to this day, where I try and take control again. But I've developed this self-awareness to realize in the moment that I'm trying to lay my hands on something that is not mine. So a large portion of that is the awareness to know what I can control and what I can't control, and the awareness to know historically what I've been good at dealing with and what I haven't been good at dealing with. And also, what are your thumb screws? Bourbon and yoga pants is not a good combination for Bear. Not me in the yoga pants. That's never good for me. But you know what I mean? Introducing alcohol and an opportunity for lust to me is never going to go well. It's just a track record. And because it's a track record, of course the enemy knows that and will play on that. So then therefore I've got to police that, right? That's a set of behaviors that I know that historically for me is a deal breaker. So do not engage, right? Don't fight unless you can win. So I'm not going to go try and fight that battle. I'm not even going to be on that battlefield. I'll be somewhere else. So that's part of it. Historically understanding when I try and drive the bus ends up in the ditch. And I get to thinking sometimes that I'm a good driver, and then all I've got to do is look back on my life and go, I'm not that good of a driver. We're just constantly ending up in the ditch. So, no, and I'm on camera, but thank you. I'll say next, balancing having control over the Father controlling the macro. You in the micro, the Father in the macro. Come on, come sit. We'll do a video with you next.
Okay, well you go on.
Okay. So part of that, brother, is understanding your role. What is it that you were designed to do? What does the Father have you doing? One of the questions that I ask people regularly when we first start talking for consulting is not what are you not doing that you should be doing? Because that's a common question. But what are you doing that you shouldn't be doing? One of the things, for example, is worry. I tell people all the time, if you believe in the Father, you're not allowed to worry anymore. Now that's a muscle, and you got to exercise it. But you're not allowed to worry. If there's something that you're worrying about, generally speaking, it's something that you can't control. If it's something that you can't control, that's not your responsibility. That's the Father's responsibility, so you give that to Him so that He can deal with it, and then you absolve yourself of the weight of that on your shoulders because you can't do anything about it anyway. So that's one way that I let the Father run the macro. I believe that the Father presents us with myriad opportunities to be blessed every day. But we have to meet those opportunities with actions. And so in the micro, you have to have a track record of working hand in hand with the Father and moving, trusting in Him. And I don't mean that as some like cheap, just trust in Him, brother. Okay. No, it's like He's on point and you're following, right? And you know that He's good. He's seeing everything and He's going to guide you safely from where you are to where you need to be. You trust this process because you've done it so many times before. You've been on patrol with Him. You know He's good. He's not good. He's the best, right? You know that it might get hairy, but you're going to come back out of it again. So it's that level of trust and understanding that these opportunities will happen, they will occur, they will come for you to be blessed. And then you need to meet those opportunities with action. You need to step through as these things show up for you. Trusting, how did you learn to follow the Father without without letting yourself try to take control again? Well, another obvious answer to that is the Torah. For me, and I find for a lot of people who have lived a life of chaos at one point or another, having a definitive set of rules, do this, don't do that, is very good for us. If this, then that. The whole first 5 books of the Bible is, if you do this, this will happen. If you don't do this, this will happen. Okay, it's an operating system. It's a handbook. This is how people work. This is how the relationship between people and their creator work. And so that's really easy for me, knowing that at times there's an error, cannot compute, we mess up. And we are the glitch in the system. But by and large, it goes well for us. Things run smoothly for us when I do things this way. And when I try and take control and do things my way, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And I have many a time had the temptation to, let's say, for example, we're not gonna, typically on Shabbat, we hang out at the house in the morning. I read the word. Me and my wife split a pot of coffee, and then we'll either go to a local fellowship or we'll go be with our tribe that's a little bit farther away, or whatever, right? And there's days where there's temptation to do something that would not be restful, that would not be mindful of the Father, that would not be in accordance with His law. And I feel like, all right, this is a test. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to be obedient. And you know what? Literally, within hours, that obedience will be blessed. If I don't do it, the lack of obedience brings a curse about, right? And that sounds very, legalistic, but that's our experience. Hi, honey. Feel free to jump in at any point if you want. That's the question. How did you learn to follow the Father without letting yourself try and take control again? And how do you balance having control over the micro in your life with the Father controlling the macro in your life? Again, getting back to that last part, there's things you can do and things you can't do. And the micro, the tactical situation, the micro is tactical, and tactical is boots on the ground, and your boots are on the ground. So that's your responsibility. The macro, the big picture, that's strategic. That's up in the air. You're not up in the air. And so it's a very clear dichotomy there. Dichotomy, check, question, Jocko. So it's pretty clear cut as far as whose immediate authority does that fall under, whose responsibility is it. If it's down here on the ground, that's you, bro. If it's up there in the air, strategic, that's him. And treat it that way. And don't ever stop talking to the Father. Don't ever, literally all day. How many times in the middle of the day it's like, praise the Father, that's awesome, thank you, Yah. Like, right there. Speak to him like you're speaking to a friend, it doesn't have to be some big religious experience every time you open your mouth. I get this question too a lot. How do I get better at praying? Just speak from your heart. If all it is Father, thank you. In Yeshua's name, amen. I'd rather have a half a dozen words said with the utmost gratitude than 16 paragraphs that are just a meaningless incantation. So, control over the micro and the macro. You got anything to add?
It becomes easier the more you do it.
Yep.
Because he's got this.
Yep.
And when you're first starting, think most people are kind of, control freaks over their life. But the more you trust and the more he shows you that he's got this, the easier it is just to let go. And let his will be done instead of your will.
That's a great point, because if you look at the progression of events in our life, all the different tests, Stephen's back, all the different tests that we experienced prior to being here, they were exercises in us building our trust in the Father, that when this opportunity presented itself, if we had zero trust in the Father and this opportunity presented itself, we wouldn't have had the balls to step into it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Been scared.
Like, hell no. Leave a good job in a good neighborhood with good neighbors and
good schools
and do all that, and it's contextually it's like, what a bunch of crap. Like, what a blessing that I don't have to live there anymore. But
well, even like once we got here
and
it
was not easy when we got here either.
No, we had challenges getting here, but then once we did the whole you work in Texas while I'm here
Right.
for 6 months, and taking that leap for me to say, honey, just quit.
Yep.
He's like, what are we gonna do? Like, I don't know, but it's gonna work out. Like,
Yep.
we got here for a reason. So if you're not happy and we're not happy, like this just isn't working, we gotta have faith that something's gonna work out and we're gonna be okay.
Yeah, that realization, which is of course, hindsight being 2020, it's like duh, but it's like the Father didn't move us 200 miles away so that I could work 200 miles away.
Right.
You know what
Yeah.
Wow, really? Yeah.
Duh.
Who'd have thought? So, but I think it's just, again, like I was talking about earlier, it's establishing that track record, that trust, and building that relationship with them. And again, I don't say trust cheaply, and I don't say it as it's not a throwaway. I mean it deeply, and that's the other thing that is very much so. The way we run our lives is we pray as if it all depends on him, because it does. And we work as if it all depends on us, because it does. And somewhere in the middle of that balance, there's a synthesis where heaven meets earth and things just happen. And it's as long as they're happening his way, and we're constantly, and all the time in the middle of the day, I'm like, just show me what it is I'm supposed to do next. And I'll get a text from somebody and I'll be like, bam, there it is. Bam, there. I was just this morning on my hands and knees in the office saying, Father, I need you to fund Florida. This has got to happen. I need you to fund Florida. And I was on a phone call earlier with somebody, and at the end of the call, they said, how much do you need to get to Florida? Your personal experience, your personal expenses. I said, well, we had some money set aside, but then the head gasket happened on the car and this and that and blah, 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 blah. I said, how much do you need? I said, we're $1,500 shy of where we need to be. He said, I'll put a check in the mail. So how do I learn to follow the Father without letting myself take control? Because me could never do that. Me doesn't have that track record. But the Father does over and over again. And this didn't happen to us overnight. This has been a years-long relationship, right?
Well, I mean, it's been lifelong because he's shown himself to you.
Yeah.
Many, many times.
That's a great point.
But the final kind of culmination of all of those years and all of those trials and all of those blessings just kind of came to a head.
Mm-hmm. And imagine that, it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It worked out. So I think a big part of it, and this will be the bow that we tie on this conversation, I know just how broken I am. I got a helpmeet that reminds me occasionally as well.
I'm broken too.
We're all broken. But I know, man, I'm good at playing in the world. But playing in the world goes poorly for me. And just like you said, the Father has established a track record with me that He's made it so that I don't have to play in the world anymore. So it's just for me being mindful of the fact that none of this is mine anyway. I didn't earn this. This is all blessing. And so if all this came from the Father anyway, who am I to try and have ultimate authority over this? I'm nobody.
No, don't you
Right? And the only reason I exist is to do His will. You having a puppy issue?
Yeah, I got soaking wet, muddy puppies trying to jump on me and love on me.
Cool. So I feel like this has been a good bit of rambling, and I apologize, Mr. E.H. Nebraska, but I think it's about building that record of trust with Him, understanding that, man, you exist to do His will,
Yeah.
okay? And that He will provide, protect, and bless. He's in the business of that. That's what He does. So,
The more you do it, the easier it gets.
yeah, step out in faith. Not in faith that you're you, but in faith that He's Him, right? And then, I guess, lastly, give Him all the glory, man. When things go well, you better make sure that everybody you know knows that it's not because you're you, it's because He's Him, right? I feel like that's quintessential, that we acknowledge that. You know, hubris comes before the fall. Well, I don't ever want to fall again. Right. So I just want to be cradled in the Father's arms. I want to walk with Him in the cool of the day, right? And He is. He does. And we're blessed
Praise
for it.
Yah.
Praise Yah. So, knowing what it looks like on the other side of the equation, I don't want to mess it up. And so I let Him drive the bus, and I just go along for the ride. Shalom.